So hi everybody. Hope you can all hear us okay. IT thing issues permitting. So my name is Tim Allen, and I'm just sat with my colleague.
Hi, I'm Hannah Rogers.
So myself and Hannah are Admiral Nurses working at Great Western Hospital. So we're just going to take a few minutes today to talk a little bit more about the Admiral Nursing Service, both nationally and locally. And hopefully, if there are anybody that have any particular questions towards the end, we might take a few minutes just to go through some things with you as well. Just prepared a few slides, not too many. So we'll kind of kick off if that's okay with you. I don't know if we kind of know anybody that's joining us, but hopefully we can give everybody a little bit more of an insight into Admiral Nursing, because I think typically it's, even now really, it's not something particularly that people are all that familiar with, and we kind of often get lots of either blank or rather puzzled looks from people, even in the hospital sometimes still, when we say that we are an Admiral Nurse. So Admiral Nursing really is the business end, or the front-facing component of the organisation that is Dementia UK. So Dementia UK is a national organisation. It's been in existence for about 30 years or so. And it has now around about 300 nurses working under its umbrella. It's still relatively small. And we often draw an analogy in terms of things like Macmillan Nurses, for example. We know that Macmillan Nurses have got something like 4,000 nurses across the UK, and most people, even if they haven't had direct contact with an agency like Macmillan, we'll still have heard or know a little bit about that organisation. But Admiral Nursing is much smaller, and so when we get an opportunity such as this one, we like to do a little bit of promotion really, and information sharing. So Admiral Nurses come from all sorts of backgrounds. Myself and Hannah are both from a mental health nursing background, but other Admiral Nurses might be from learning disabilities background or a general nursing background. You might find Admiral Nurses working in all sorts of settings around the country. The business model of Dementia UK is that it will seek to go into a partnership with what it would term as a host organisation. So for myself and Hannah here, we work with Great Western Hospital as our host. But if you are in another part of the country, if you're in London, or if you're in the Midlands or the North, for example, you might come across an Admiral Nurse working for the Royal British Legion, for private hospitals, hospices, and you might find them based within mental health teams, social services departments. So it just depends. People's experience of Admiral Nursing across the country will vary a little bit, and you might find them working in all sorts of organisations. Fundamentally, the message at the bottom of that first slide is the principle of Admiral Nursing is about supporting the carer or the family member of somebody living with dementia. So as we go on to explain, we work alongside lots of other agencies that are there for the person with dementia, but we are there to support the team, if you want to call it, really, everybody that is around that person, looking after that person and is interested in that person's care. The gentleman you just see, hopefully, in the top right of your screen is a gentleman that's called, or nicknamed, Admiral Joe, and his Admiral Joe's family were the kind of instigators of Dementia UK. So they looked after this gentleman, Joseph Levy, through his experience of vascular dementia, and he was affectionately nicknamed Admiral Joe because of his love of sailing. And I think through his illness, or through his experience of dementia, that family identified a particular lack or a gap of a service for themselves, and they brought Dementia UK into existence, and it's kind of grown from that point. So just moving on, so our main aim is to provide support to families, carers and people living with dementia throughout the course of their illness, and that can be from any point really, even prior to diagnosis. We get people, especially in the hospital here, who we talk to their family members, and we can appreciate that actually probably that person, for example, might have an undiagnosed dementia. So We can work with people from that point right through their journey, right through their experience, through the stages of dementia, and we still have contact with families as well, even after they've maybe suffered from a bereavement as well. The other big part of our work in the hospital and in Swindon is about support to our colleagues. So that's what we call our supporting best practice component. So, for example, we work with individual teams, departments to share education, advice, training around all aspects of dementia care. And we get involved in lots of the development, hospital policy, local policy, dementia strategy meetings, operational group meetings. So I like to think, although we're only two people, we have quite a lot of influence in and out of the hospital. And obviously our main aim again really is about improving the experience that people have of their care at Great Western, be that the person with dementia or their family as well. So the kind of next slide just breaks that down a little bit more. Just some examples really. We've got lots of examples of delivering some small education and training sessions to different teams in the building. And that's a lot around, obviously about dementia, but it's also around, sometimes it's a little bit more generally around older adult mental health. And we recognise and appreciate that dementia overlaps, obviously, with lots of other mental health conditions, particularly delirium in the hospital, and also depression as well. So whilst we are dementia nurses, so to speak, we can hopefully use our kind of mental health backgrounds, our experience and our expertise in working with staff to understand and differentiate really some of the signs and symptoms of different conditions. We want to work flexibly in the hospital, so it's not just about formal training. I'd like to think that we are approachable. I was just walking around the building yesterday and one or two people just kind of came up and approached me just to do some short education sessions, some staff awareness sessions. And I think that's really, really hopefully one of the benefits of having an Admiral Nurse service here at Great Western, is that it just enables people to approach us just on a slightly less formal basis and just ask us for those bits of advice as they're going through their own working days. And just going down that slide a little bit, really just got some examples of some of the other teams that we work particularly closely with here. So our colleagues in the mental health liaison team, so they're based just across the road at the Victoria Centre. I'm sure lots of people listening in will be familiar with the Victoria Centre because that's where the memory service are based. Palliative care team, social work discharge teams. So again, I think as Hannah and I work in and out of the hospital, part of our job is about facilitating hopefully a smoother transition for people from a hospital stay to going home to the community. And our role really is about supporting the family through, again, it's about that kind of journey, really, journey through illness, but also it's a journey through care. So some examples of working with families. We kind of will go out and see families. Let's say you've got an example of first time we go out to see somebody at home. It's just a discussion, really. We've kind of got the word assessment down on that slide, but I think sometimes assessments, that kind of word can put people off a little bit, really. It's really discussion. We want people to feel comfortable. We want to establish a good relationship with people. So it's about finding out for us. So I think mental health nurses are quite nosy, I think, really. We ask lots of questions, but hopefully not we're not there to interrogate people. We're there just to open discussion, find out, what is difficult for you, what's been hard, what might be helpful, how can we understand what you need really as a family, but also what does the person with dementia need as well. We really want to be able to equip people, hopefully with further advice, information, signposting, knowledge about dementia. We want to equip them with resources to enable them to feel more supported, a little bit more robust in terms of their caring role, as well as understanding the person's journey with dementia as well. Our job therefore it's about promoting the well-being of both the carer and the person with dementia, and to enable them to maximise their physical health and their mental health. Lots and lots around transitions. Common themes, I think, from carers are associated feelings of loss and guilt, so kind of conflicting emotions. So again, that's kind of hopefully where our kind of mental health backgrounds and skills come in, because we understand, as well as much as I think caring for somebody with dementia is about the practical aspects of care, it's also about the emotional aspects as well. And again, just the final point on that slide really there is about helping, amongst other things, to facilitate access to practical support. So often people come to us with questions about how do I get in touch with the memory service? How do I get in touch with social services? So I think Hannah and I both, because we've both worked within local services, we're in a good place to be able to kind of share and signpost people as well. In terms of outcomes, we hope that we improve people's quality of life, people's well-being. We hope that people may feel more confident in sharing difficult thoughts and feelings they have themselves. Low mood, anxiety, uncertainty, apprehension, guilt, as we've already mentioned, they're really strong, prominent themes, I think, for carers, enabling them to have better access or smoother access to other information where else they might be able to go to get support for their particular set of difficulties. And a lot of the families, I think, that we get involved with, there might be some conflict, there might be some disagreements and disputes. So you might have, a partner, for example, feeling that somebody's care needs to go in a certain direction. Perhaps you might have an adult child feeling very much that maybe needs to go another way. So we kind of act as a mediator, I think, really. We're advocating for the person with dementia, but we're trying to understand things from the perspective of all the family and all the carers, and trying to find some consensus and agreement and ways forward. Alongside that support for families, again, at the bottom of the slide, it's making access for our other health and social care professionals hopefully a little bit easier, really. So we do work around social admissions to Great Western. So just to explain, social admissions really is where somebody's care or ability to live independently at home breaks down for not for any kind of acute physical health reasons, but because maybe of their dementia and they're struggling to cope and they're beginning to neglect themselves. So you sometimes, on occasions, we get people brought to the hospital not because they have an acute medical need, but they have more of a social need, really. So one of our aims, and this is a big ask, really, because we do understand that just as two nurses, we're not going to prevent social admissions, but again, it's coming back to the point earlier around equipping families with resources and feeling more able to manage difficult situations in the communities, hopefully, is to have some impact in reducing those social admissions to Great Western, especially because I think we do recognise that actually, as much as we work with the hospital and we feel that we've got some wonderful colleagues here, if I'm an older adult and I'm coming into hospital, that's going to be a very difficult experience for me, really. And we, if at all possible, we want to try and avoid somebody having to come here for purely social reasons, because once somebody comes here, they might get admitted to an elderly medical ward. And unfortunately, there is a burden really associated with a hospital admission to somebody that's older, and people can physically decondition and their mental health can deteriorate, and they can sometimes, without being overly negative, they can kind of find themselves on a little bit of a slippery slope, really, towards full-time care, for example. So we have lots of links. We have better links now with lots of GP surgeries in Swindon. We work with speech and language teams, with the continence service, with the Parkinson's service, with the stroke team. So we kind of link in, or we try to link in as best we can with these other organisations, again, in primary care, to try to prevent as much as we reasonably can those admissions to hospital when it's not strictly a medical need. Just specifically about us, just of interest. So originally we came into being in October 2018. And originally it was a fixed term contract. So Great Western Dementia UK went into an agreement to provide 2 Admiral nurses for just a period of 2 years. Our work is across the hospital as a whole, so both inpatients, outpatients, and if the person with dementia is registered with a Swindon GP, we potentially might support that family in the community. The good news is, or good news for us here, is that our fixed term came to an end obviously last year, but we have been commissioned now on an ongoing basis. So that was great news for us, obviously potentially, and hopefully for the hospital, and hopefully for other people as well. So we're here on a permanent basis. And I think we're both really pleased because I think we can plan even more now. Our kind of, the next 6 months and next year, we can kind of really look to the future and what we're going to be able to influence here. I think on Friday, we're doing another session when we talk a lot more around dementia care in hospital. So without kind of giving too much away now, I think we're already getting involved in some projects which will kind of shape the environment, for example, the built environment at Great Western over the next few years. So us now knowing that we're going to be a part of the Great Western team is really good news for us. So just in terms so people can understand where we kind of sit in terms of the organisation, if you like, really. So Hannah and I occupy a little space down here on the ground floor of the hospital. We work Monday to Friday, very broadly from 8 till sort of 4, or depending on circumstances, really. And from a management perspective, one of the matrons who has responsibility for older persons care here at Great Western is our line manager, if you like. So touched upon this slide already, really, and it's about those strong links. So Hannah and I both came from a background of Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Partnership, which is a local mental health trust. I think that's stood us in good stead. We have really, really close links with the memory service. I'm sure lots of people listening in will have had an experience of the memory service, other parts of older adult mental health services, all of our partner organisations that are involved in this fantastic Dementia Action Week, so Alzheimer's Society, Swindon Carers. Obviously, the footprint of Great Western is quite a wide one. So we have lots of people coming into the hospital from South Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, Berkshire, other areas of Wiltshire. So where we can't necessarily support some of those people, obviously in the community, if we're seeing those people and those families here, we still would have some conversations with them and try to make sure that point of discharge from Great Western, where we're able to link them in with their broadly equivalent services locally. So that is a very, very quick snapshot, really, of who we are, the kind of role that we have here in the hospital and in the community. Even now, we've only been in existence for about 2.5 years, so it's still relatively early days for service, but I'd say we've kind of got lots of plans, really, in terms of where we would like to go from here onwards. So questions, I've just typed up a few questions there, but I don't know if people that are actually taking part in the session as we speak wanted to ask any questions just in the chat box. We can go through some of these things. I think Hannah and I certainly find there are common questions that people do ask us more than others, really. I think if I looked at that list in front of me, I would probably go down to the bottom and talk about stages. People often ask about what stages of my loved one's dementia, where is that person? We've done some little sections for the radio, and I think Hannah talks a lot about stages. And I think if you go onto the internet, like any other, we're all very good at Google and Wikipedia and all these sorts of things. When we've got something wrong with us, some of that information is great. Some of that information needs to be kind of sifted through, and I think we need to use our discretion. So often people will say, they talk about the 7-stage model and the 4-stage model. And obviously there are lots of models, I think in the UK, we tend not to use those so much, or certainly not locally. Just very broadly speaking, and it will be different for everybody, I think Hannah and I generally would, we kind of tend to veer away a little bit from certain staged models because we don't think they're particularly helpful and they don't recognize individuality. So we often will instead prefer to say something along the lines of early, middle, late, or perhaps mild, moderate, and severe. Everybody's experience of dementia will be different depending on the type of dementia they have, depending on their physical health, depending on where they live, what kind of support they have around them. So, and that's again another reason why I think we tend not to use the 4-stage models and the 7-stage models and all these other sorts of models. So very broadly speaking, we kind of look at things and say if people are starting to have difficulties with their memory, perhaps, but nevertheless, they're still managing most aspects of their day-to-day life at home. They might be in an earlier stage or a mild stage, so to speak. I think in a moderate stage, people's difficulties will be spreading outwards. So it might no longer be the case that it's just memory. It might be that their speech, their communication is changing and becoming more difficult. They're perhaps much more reliant on the support of a significant other to enable them to function in day-to-day life. So again, very, very broadly, very generally speaking, that might be somebody in the middle stage. I think for most people in the later or late stage, they're usually almost entirely dependent on somebody else to maintain their safety, to maintain their welfare, their well-being. And by that point, often other aspects of somebody's physical health might have changed really. So they might be having lots of difficulties with continence. Their mobility might have changed. So they might be needing much more in terms of hands-on, almost nursing care, so to speak, or certainly hands-on care. So that's the kind of answer to that little one. Okay, so we're just going to have a little look at questions here. Treatment. People do ask us about treatment. So in Swindon, so just to explain, I think it's useful just to explain, there's a little bit of a difference in terms of where people live and their access to service. So, people talk about postcode lotteries in terms of access to healthcare. In Swindon, I think almost entirely referral from GP to memory service is the kind of route, really. And then the memory service will assess, potentially diagnose and potentially treat. The only reason I mention that is because even in Wiltshire, even in North Wiltshire, you can go a few miles down the road to Wombassett or Cricklade or somewhere very close by. Actually, it's a slightly different route there, and people often will be diagnosed by their GP, for example. So, but just in Swindon, route to treatment, diagnosis through the memory service. Even nowadays, first-line treatments are just 3. So drugs such as donepezil, galantamine, rivastigmine, and sometimes memantine in moderate stage dementia. I'm just going to have a look at the questions in the chat box now. So we've just got a comment about the 3 stages model. I think it's simpler. And I say we don't want to put people into boxes. We don't want to put people into stage 4, stage 5, stage 6, stage 7. We recognize that people are individuals. And that's why we kind of use that model. Yes, so just an answer to another question there. So yes, so our service is entirely free. So we're effectively, we kind of represent, it's slightly confusing, I think, to outside, but effectively we represent 2 organisations. So we represent Great Western and Dementia UK, but we are contracted to the NHS. So any contact is entirely free to everybody. Let's see if we've got any others. Kevin did a fantastic session, Dementia Friends session yesterday. So I think people that listened to Kevin's session yesterday, the answers, I think, Kevin, were in a lot of your session yesterday. So age-related change, it's not normal. lots and lots of people will say, oh, what do you expect, Tim? I'm getting older. That doesn't have to be the case at all, really. Again, I think it's a lot about people's environment, the type of life that they're able to have, the kind of support that they have around them. So anything more than, we can all be a bit absent-minded. We can all forget, I'm hopeless, I'm always forgetting where I put my keys and my pen and those sorts of things. But I think anything above and beyond that, it's always worth talking to, your GP, for example. You shouldn't expect to have particular difficulties with your memory just as a part of being old or older. Just going back to the questions. Yes, so all Admiral services are free, actually, regardless of who they are hosted by. We have kind of regular catch-ups with a lot of the other Admiral nurses more locally, although there isn't a broadly equivalent service, round and about. So in Wiltshire, the only other Admiral nurses are actually operating within the Order of St. John Care Home. But obviously that service is entirely free to those families. We've got Royal British Legion colleagues. Again, that's open to their beneficiaries, really, people that have had some kind of connection with the forces in the past. But again, so no Admiral nurse, I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think there's in any Admiral services whatsoever where there would be any expectation for people to be paying to access that service. So it's entirely free. Is it difficult being two? Sometimes, yes, is the answer. Yes, I think especially moving forward, really, because I think like any new service, it takes time for a message to get out there, so to speak, in terms of the hospital and the community. I think we're getting a lot more calls now from some of the GP surgeries in Swindon, for example. We welcome self referrals also, so which is great. But obviously, as that goes forward, yes, so we're managing at the moment, and we're able to kind of hopefully devote as much time as we can to the people that we have contact with, and our colleagues as well. But I'm sure at some point in the future we would love to have an extra pair of hands, but that might be a way off. So I think it's just the two of us for the time being. So cures, no cures, unfortunately. Treatment wise, very, very crudely, can kind of break things down into a rule of thirds, I think, around treatment. So certainly the first line treatments, about a third of people that would take them will respond positively to them, and it might improve their attention, their concentration, their kind of level of alertness, if you like, really. So it's not a cure, but it can help in the shorter term. About a third of people probably won't really experience anything particularly beneficial from their treatment. And then unfortunately, another third or so may continue to deteriorate. So obviously, we're still waiting, I think, essentially, aren't we, for that kind of cure, so to speak. So certainly the treatments that are all being prescribed at the moment are things that have been in existence for quite a lot of years. So we're kind of overdue, really, for something that we're all kind of hoping for in terms of better effectiveness and cure, so to speak. How can you help us, Rachel? So I think it's events like this, really. These are fantastic opportunities for us. We'd love to have more of them. We're doing some things specific to the hospital this week. I just think in a big organisation, it's very easy. Again, I think the payroll of GWH is about 4,500 people, and we are too. So, and obviously turnover staff, doctors, nurses coming, going, all these sorts of things. So just having opportunities constantly to remind people that we are here, just give us a phone call, have a chat to us. You don't have to go off and try to get through to the GP surgery necessarily to be pointed in our direction. yeah, so it's just about spreading the message, really letting people know that we are here to help and support in whatever way we can. And if we don't know particularly, usually I think we can find somebody else that will. But that's mostly it, I think, really. I don't know if we've got any more. Just quickly check if we've got any more questions coming through. Yeah, so genetics, people do ask often about, does dementia run in families? Obviously, lots of people can get worried and think, oh, you know, my mum and dad got Alzheimer's dementia. Does this mean I'm going to get it? I think simple answer is probably no, really. Obviously, we all carry, I guess, you know, a genetic predisposition perhaps to one condition or another. There are a very, very tiny amount of people that carry genetic predisposition to Alzheimer's, and then there's a possibility that that may be passed on to your child, for example. But statistically, we can't say it's not there, but statistically it's very, very small. Obviously, Kevin, as you pointed out yesterday, there are well in excess of 100 different types of dementia, and there are certain conditions that may make people more likely to develop a certain condition. But by and large, I think it's more about those kind of, often again, those lifestyle factors, certainly in terms of things like vascular dementia. It's about kind of managing other conditions, be it diabetes, high blood pressure. It's just those kind of health and well-being messages that we all get. You know, lifestyle is really important. Memory service, let's say, go back to memory service. Almost entirely everybody that we've seen had contact with, and we've had contact with probably about 400 families now, will have had some experience of working with the memory service, and the memory service are very good at pointing people in our direction also. So if you're in contact with the memory service, you can ask them for a referral to us. If you're in contact with social services, they can get in touch with us. GP surgeries will probably vary a little bit. Some know about us, some are not so familiar with us. But usually one of those routes will find their way to us. If you're in the hospital, we've got lots and lots of posters. Our information is kind of our mug shots are everywhere in the building, and they've got our details on as well. So also, Dementia UK website has a helpline, and if people are also welcome to ring the helpline number. And again, the helpline will direct people to us from time to time. So there's kind of lots of routes, really. So yes, so please do get in touch. Just let us know. So thank you. So we're doing a little session on Friday when we talk a little bit more specifically around Great Western Hospital and the kind of future of Great Western Hospital and dementia care in hospital. And yeah, thank you all for your time, and we're always open to questions, comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much both, and I'm not going to let you go without saying that we've only been made aware today that you were actually finalists in the Dementia Carers Awards, so well done.
Thank you.
And brilliant
Thank
presentation.
You, Rachel.
Really
we couldn't keep it quiet.
No.
Yeah, thank you.
we're gonna be singing your praises from the rooftops, so no, absolutely brilliant. And we'll make sure that the contact details are on your presentation for people if they need to get in touch with you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.